back to another week's video. My name is Gabby. If you've never seen me before, I make baking content and I'm so happy that you're here. So in today's video, we're gonna be conquering a fear of mine, which is working with pastry to create croissants for my friend's birthday party. She requested pain au chocolat, and so we are going to attempt to do that today. If it turns out ugly, I've already told her my love does not reflect the state of these, and we're just gonna hope for the best, truly and honestly. So come along with me as we attempt to make our own pastry and then make our own pain au chocolat. So as I just mentioned, this is my worst nightmare, and I was absolutely trying to never put myself in this position, but when someone asks to do something or asks me to do something, I'm absolutely going to do it for them. So this got me out of my comfort zone. It was actually really good that I was put in this scenario, because otherwise I don't think I would ever have done it. So I'm very grateful that I was able to conquer my fears just one day at a time, one bake at a time, I should say, and work on this. Now, as you can see, the lighting is absolutely wild in these first, few minutes of clips. Please bear with me as I was getting acquainted with my new tripod setup. I accidentally put the entire thing on slow-mo, so I found a way to unslow-mo it, but in doing that, the lights kind of are seizure-esque, you could say. So if you are sensitive to lights, I am so sorry that I ever did this to you, and I hope you can find a good spot to jump back in, because this is atrocious and I'm very sorry. But moving forward with the creation of the pastry, I'm following a very detailed, amazing recipe that I found that I will have linked down below, where we are on day one of just creating the dough in general. We're going to let it sit overnight so that way it can bloom and grow and double in size as we let it sit and rest. And then the next day, you'll see I've changed outfits. We'll start getting into the nitty-gritty, but here we're just setting up the dough initially. And again, if you found a better way to do butter than the way that I do butter, measuring butter, then please let me know. Put in the comments, because I feel a bit silly when I do it, but also I can't think of a singular other way to do it without it just being a mess. I mean, butter's a mess in general, but butter is the forefront of this recipe, and I just need to find a better way to work around it if I'm going to continue to work with as much butter as I did in this one. I don't remember the exact measurements that I was using, but that is why I will add the recipe in the description bar so you can go check that out and then follow along. And then we can both have some beautiful pain au chocolats after. And I really have a hard time with accents and pronunciation of words. So if you are French or you speak French and you know exactly how to say that, I don't want to assume that I know everything. If you could just kindly, very nicely correct me on how I should be saying that. When we were on our honeymoon last year, which is why I really wanted to do this and I was happy to do this, we went to London and Paris for our honeymoon, and I was able to get around in France a lot more than I had in previous times. I feel like it was a lot easier for me to understand what they were saying and for me to communicate with them. And when I went to Boulangerie, I was able to order a pain au chocolat and they were fine with it. And he then started spewing French at me and I got really nervous and I was like, no, sorry, American. He wasn't as nice after that, but that's okay. That's understandable. That's what you expect when you go to Paris. But I feel like I was able to, at least get by for a little while, but I always want to make sure I'm not, desecrating someone's native tongue, and I never want to do that. So if you have some nice, kind, constructive criticism on how to say this exactly, I would love to know. Put it in the comments. Also, if you've made this before or made something similar or just made your own pastry, tell me how your experience was. Let me know if you had any growing pains with it, if you found it to be easy, to be hard. I think it was medium. I would say in previous videos, you've seen me make a biscuit version of pastry, and I've had a lot of issues with that in terms of grating butter versus cubing butter in, and I've tried cubing in that sense, and it just didn't work out. I kept getting pockets of butter, and it just wasn't baking properly, and it didn't taste that good whenever I made it. You could bite into it and then just have this like overbearing, sour, bitter taste, and I didn't really love following that recipe, but I know that there's better ones out here because I was able to make this, and I made beautiful layers, and I'm very grateful that this recipe was very easy to follow and I understood it. I also would like to attribute my hours and hours and hours of research using the Great British Baking Show, where I have watched many contestants do this exact same thing under a way worse time crunch than I was under, but nonetheless completed. And I am so happy that I was able to complete it. And this is the part that I was confused about when it said to put it back in the fridge. I wasn't sure. It said use the same parchment paper, but I wasn't sure if every single time I was meant to do that or if I was supposed to close it off and make sure that the ends weren't out. I don't know if that attributed to anything in terms of the final product, but if you know that, please let me know. Like I said, I think this was definitely like a medium situation, medium hardness. Obviously, there's the proofing time, the time that it takes for it to fully bake. The main thing was just making sure I wasn't pressing too hard on this dough here. As you can see, my rolling pin is good, but it's not great. So I just went to the full hand motion of trying to roll this out myself versus using the little dowels on the side, because it runs and runs. It doesn't actually roll. So I would say that was the hardest part, and also the exact measurement. I think where I could have done better was actually getting a proper ruler out and measuring to the exact centimeters or inches that they prescribed in the recipe. I didn't exactly do that. I just kind of did that off of look because it has been a busy week. I'll tell you guys what's been going on. So as you heard, I started a new job, right? Well, mid-job, I got another interview, and I didn't expect anything from it, just went in as kind of like a, what's the worst that could happen? There's nothing really riding on this interview. I have a job currently, and I ended up getting the job the next day, and so I have been juggling trying to set up job for that, working my last 2 weeks, as well as baking for literally everyone at my previous job. Like, I'm so grateful that I have been given this opportunity to do that, and that's exactly what I hoped my event would do, was just kind of propel that side of my business. But that means I have been spending an obscene amount of time in the kitchen. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually what I love to do. And if you had told me back in high school that this would be the highlight of my day and I would love to spend time in a kitchen, I would have laughed in your face, truly and honestly, because there's nothing I loved more than being on my bike out in the sun or by the beach. Like, that was my favorite thing to do, and it still is. I just obviously don't live anywhere near a beach anymore, but there's just something about this slow life that just adds a little bit more happiness, I think, to my everyday life. And oh my gosh, can you see those layers? I'm actually geeked. I'm absolutely geeked looking at those. I'm so happy when I saw those. I did use the same cutter for my chocolate, so that's why there was little specks of darkness in my dough. It wasn't anything that was on the dough itself. It was just on this cutter. And now I am cutting terrible lines. I think this also attributes to the way that they proofed and the way that they actually baked. Later on, you'll see that I had one amazing one, and that was my mascot, but the rest kind of looked a bit like cinnamon rolls here. I don't know, maybe I could have put some water at the end or egg wash at the end and then tied them off like that, or maybe I just wasn't rolling them tight enough. I'm not quite sure, but this is, I think, turned out to be the golden one. That was the one that everyone said looked the prettiest, and the one I gave to the birthday girl, because I was like, this is the representation of what I would want every single one to look like, but it's not. So you can have this one, and we'll just eat the cinnamon rolls. They taste the same, trust me. I think in total this recipe made 11 to 12. So for how many girls were there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For 5 girls, I think 11 was a good number. We both were able to eat 2, and then I let people take them home as well. But as I was saying, like, if you had told me when I was in high school that this would be something that I am pursuing and doing every day, I would have just literally laughed in your face. And it's just so funny how you progress and you grow in life, and you do things that maybe you never thought you would be doing in career or in your personal life or in, I don't know, maybe a relationship or something of that nature. Like maybe hobby-wise, you're just doing something you never thought about before. And so I just want to encourage y'all that maybe you're not enjoying what you're doing currently, but there's always a time where you're going to look back and be like, oh, if you would have told me back then that I'm doing this now and I'm enjoying it so much, then, you know, I would have never believed you, type of thing. Like, just encouraging you to try new things and maybe find a new hobby that sounds super outlandish but has given you a little bit of interest in the past, and just try it, go full force if you can, if you're able. I understand that's a privilege, but you know, if you're able to do something as small as I don't know, I'm trying to think of an easy craft like painting. You know, you just get acrylic paint from Walmart and a little canvas and go crazy, or something as extreme as doing Cricut or baking, whatever it may be. Just want to encourage y'all that you can do it, and maybe you'll be looking back in a few years or 10 years, 20 years, whatever, and being grateful that you did. So for all my people that jump back in after all of the crazy lights were gone, I'm so sorry. The crazy lights are back. I was in a rush the next morning. I was on my way to work. As you can tell, I've changed my outfit yet again, and I was down to the wire at this point. I needed to leave for her house in the next 10 minutes, and they needed 10 minutes to cool, but they weren't done baking it, so I let them sit for a little while longer, and then they came out to this beautiful golden brown color. And if you could smell my house, y'all, like, the smell was incredible. The look, not so much, but the smell was all that mattered. And like I said, there was one beautiful one, and it was this little guy here. I love this little aesthetic powdering on top. Now, when I was in France, I didn't have it with powdered sugar, but the recipe called for it, so I just, ran with it. I think it was a nice, sweet little touch, but here's everyone at the party enjoying it, and that is the final product. And I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope to see y'all in the next one.